The 7-Minute God Debate. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Everybody loves a good debate. I will be speaking for the affirmative team first, and thank God I am. I wish my opposition luck. I am not here to preach. I am not religious. I table no faith. I table measurable science. I have a few minutes to prove that God exists on earth. Okay. If we are talking about a grown-up God, that should be easy enough. The question is not whether there is a God. The question is how life on earth could possibly exist without the guidance of one. I don't offer divine fire, lightning bolts, or voices from the heavens. I offer the reality of turtles, salmon, and pigeons as a collection of the same science wonder. Academically speaking, factoring in shared knowledge and practical common sense. Those three examples alone should conclude this debate before it even begins. However, as Shakespeare wrote, all the world's a stage. Let's go back about 80 years, when science hit a crossroads. In one hand, they had the theory of evolution, the so-called principle of continuity, the backbone of modern biology. In the other hand, they had the salmon, the turtle, and the pigeon, staring them dead in the face as a massive contradiction. Their guidance systems shouldn't exist. They required decisions and calculations to be made. The turtle could be anywhere on the planet. And yet, somehow the turtle gets home. So what did science do? They stitched together a massive pseudoscience patchwork quilt, a web of unaccepted theories, half-explanations, and just maybes, to confuse and cover up the obvious. And yet, here we are enjoying salmon sandwiches for lunch. Let's start with the salmon, because if it doesn't return home, it perishes. Every single one across every river, every ocean, every generation. Miss the mark? Extinction. No sandwich for lunch. Science says salmon smell their way home through salt water. They can't explain how. They just say it. At some point, you either admit guidance exists, or you keep throwing darts at a wall hoping one sticks. Now the turtle. We all know the story. A mother lays her eggs and they hatch. They disappear for 25 years amongst the vastness of the oceans. Then, somehow, they return to the same beach they hatched from, to within a few meters. Oh. Science says, magnetic fields, the same as the pigeon. All right, let's test it. They obtained the funding and studied their bodies. No magnetic substances. Sorry birdies, we got it wrong. Well then, what now? Do we admit that something greater is guiding them? No. Science says, no God. Instead, we doubled down on the dogma by rewording and backfolding old theories. And then it became ridiculous. Maybe they use the sun. Except, pigeons fly at night. Maybe this, maybe that. So, what does science say at the top end? We don't know. It's a massive wonder how 6 different salmon species and 7 turtles can. And we best not mention the 13 species of lobsters that mirror the travel wonder. Okay. Because I cannot say that a fish smells its way home, I politely ask, what bedtime story do scientists tell about the 25 individual examples of miracles on Earth tables so far? And please, what is my answer when little Johnny asks, does nature have a consciousness? If you are onto my pitch, everything I speak of can be extrapolated back to what science witnesses in the food chain. When we jar the collective wonder as one, it stinks to the high heaven of God. Here's the twist. I deliberately picked the pigeon because it is a special case. Picture a pigeon 500 miles from home, scared, alone. It is vulnerable to predators. Flying in circles, lost with anxiety. Then suddenly, something steps in and guides it home. I see pure compassion at work. So, if you ask yourself, who does the pigeon call for direction if not God? Alright, to complement the start, I draw your attention to an Australian 60-minute program aired on YouTube. Periodically in Australia, when a major flood fills the outback deserts, 20,000 pelicans arrive from the coast, 500 miles away, almost overnight. They don't migrate there annually. It happens every 4, 5, or even 8 years. Hence not migration. Yet every time it floods, they appear instantly. Not just pelicans. 25 species of birds, from Australia, China, Japan, Korea, and beyond. The narrator asked the professor, how on earth do they know? The PhD holder investigating from Sydney University responded, with a giggle and a smile, that's the $65 million question. Politely I say, No, sir, the only question is, who makes the phone call to China, if not God? Let's talk about Lawrence Anthony, the man who saved elephants, the elephant whisperer, the man they never forgot. In his book he wrote, "When I arrive home from trips away, the elephants meet me at the front gate." A reporter on YouTube put this to the test. He flew home from Europe to Africa with Lawrence, just to see if it was true. Guess what he witnessed and documented? The elephants were waiting at the farm gate. Tragically, a few years later the elephants found out when he passed, coming to the farmhouse hours later. They stay for 2 days, grieving the loss of their savior in tears. It is so sad. How could the elephants possibly know that Lawrence passed? They marched to his home, from miles away, arriving at his gate, in a silent, solemn tribute, not just that day but for 3 years running at exactly 5 o'clock on the day. It is a must-watch. Please source the videos. If we add that there are hundreds of videos that show files of elephants, from 3 for even 5 herds, walking separately, to pay their respects, over 3 to 4 days. I politely shake my head when I say, don't tell me they just stumbled upon the body in the vastness of Africa. Not when I have Lawrence Anthony's farm gate to reference as pinpoint accuracy. Okay, let's talk about whale beaching, the yin and yang of existence. Most reports say these mammals are virally sick. This makes sense because if they were just old or just sick, they could die at sea without causing harm to others. But that's not the case. Why? Because viruses are contagious, and obviously in this case have grave consequences. It could wipe out their own species. So instead, does it make sense that the sick are beached by a higher consciousness for the greater good of life? Mammal beaching is not random. It is a blessing to the living and divine intervention. Is this the same energy that drives the salmon to spawn and die for the good of life? A higher duty of care needs contemplating. So I don't see a fish brain making this call. I see God. It is the only compassionate and divine way to quarantine the living, thus protecting the rest of the species, survival. So I kindly ask you, please, show a little respect for the burden endured when you ask yourself, who is making this yin-yang life call, if not God? All right. Let's start this with a question. Yogi Bear. No, we won't, although he is cuddly and slow. Let's start with the fastest man in history? Usain Bolt. And we add the cartoon character, the Flash, who wears a lightning bolt. An accident. A coincidence? And seriously? Oh. Or the universe telling us something, again? The jury is still out on The Simpsons. This might help with the verdict. Let's talk about Yogi Bear. The universe didn't whisper this. It jammed it down our throats. No subliminal here, Your Honor. The yogi says he sits with the divine, God, in long bouts of meditation. 2, 3 days, even weeks. No bodily functions. No water. No food. Just sit. So let me ask, does the hibernating bear use the same energy? Does the squirrel? This is not rocket science. I politely ask, who is making the call this time? Sadhguru says he sits with Shiva in meditation. With God. The evidence suggests that some unknown divine energy protects the hibernating animals from freezing to death. Now, the call is just this. With a massive smile, I invite anybody in the room to comment. When I have Yogi Bear on the table. Who is going to call Sadhguru a liar? Anybody? Anybody? Thank you. That concludes the God debate. And seriously, how funny is Yogi Bear? That is classic transcendent God. This debate is written by Wayne Randall and taken from his book, Science Dogma. If this sparked something in you, dive deeper. It's available now on ebooks and paperback on Amazon.